pornography is one of the most selfish behaviors that you're ever going to take part in. You're sitting down by yourself privately, consuming other human beings, other individuals for your own short-term instant gratification pleasure. If you can't tell me that that's not selfish, then I don't know what your definition of selfish really is. So you've molded and created and wired yourself, bringing neuroscience in again, or what fires together wires together. So over the time, you begin to condition yourself that humans are objects of internal pleasure, short-term gratification for me. So how does that manifest in your everyday relationships? Humans become objects of pleasure, and pleasure doesn't have to be masturbation. Pleasure can be like, what is Mike going to do for me today? What is Chris? What am I going to get out of Chris that's going to make my life better? So you begin to kind of see people as objects for your own disposal.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hello there. Welcome to another episode here on the Strong by Design podcast, as Mike mimics me. I can always count on my cohort here to help. How are you doing today?
Amazing. Finished. What was the sentence? Host of what?
Host of this Strong by Design podcast. Did I not say it?
I don't know.
I thought I did.
You got distracted.
I did. Well, I saw the lips going. It was funny. So we're here with a close friend of ours, Frank Rich, for a third time guest on the Strong by Design podcast. But it's been a while. It's been over a year and a half, and he has a lot to share with something that's become really just his life's work, his mission in life, his purpose in life, and he's grown so much in this area since the last time he's been on the show. So we're excited to dig into what is new for him and how he's changing the lives of men all over the world, making a huge impact. So our guest today, Frank Rich, the creator of Rebuilt Recovery. He has the Superhuman Life podcast, which has grown immensely over the years and is doing very, very well. And we're just delighted to have him back. He's here often. He's a friend, as I said. He comes for workouts regularly. We go for lunch a lot, so we know him quite well. And so, Frank, welcome back on Strong by Design.
Thankful to be here, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's excellent. And, of course, the conversation last time now, so we're still in this kind of the same topic, but there's a lot more to the story than what was spoken about, almost a couple years ago at this point. That was May of 2020. And that was with Mike and Brian. And you were in the first 6 months to a year in this new mission in life. And this is like the next chapter, and there's a lot more help that we can offer, I think, people. But I want to mention episode 109 is the original episode, The Truth About Porn. And that episode is our #1 episode all time here on Strong by Design. So, that's why we have you back, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. You guys have, the first time Mike shared that with me, it was a while back. It's been there at the top for a while. And, I just want to start, again by thanking you guys. Obviously this is not the easiest topic to address. You guys always, seek out the controversial conversations, which I love. But I always love to start these, with thanking the guest in the audience for, really allowing us to have this conversation, because I think it's probably one of the most needed ones.
It really is, because it's such a prevalent issue that's so taboo, and people really don't like to open up about it ever. They won't disclose information to people that they even know very well. And so, yeah, it's not, and I didn't have the ability to be part of that initial conversation. And so I'm excited to kind of join that talk today, because I know how impactful it was and how well it's done, and the feedback that we've gotten from it, and thousands of downloads. So it's obviously something that people want to hear about, and and maybe are struggling with. And that's what we're going to talk more about today. But if people haven't gone back, I do encourage, go back, listen to episode 109. Do it. you'll get so much from it. And then this would obviously be, but if you're going to listen to this first, then I would still go back and still listen to that afterwards. But take people just through quickly what you are doing so that, catch people up. And then let's just get into some of the transformations and some of the other areas of this subject matter that are pretty important for you.
Absolutely, man. And the way that you introed me at the beginning there, I really think was perfect, because the terminology and the words that you said was, really at this point in my life, I'm kind of building this life's resume. I think you said life's work is kind of what I'm doing here. I always, when I'm asked, like, how did you get into, helping guys with porn addiction? How did you get into this recovery space? Like, my kind of canned response is like, it's not something I woke up one day and be like, yeah, I want to get into this really kind of taboo industry and kind of start talking about the uncomfortable conversation that nobody else is having. What everything that I'm doing today has been a result of, my own life's, first my own personal transformation, looking myself in the mirror and having a difficult conversation with myself first about what it is you're doing, some of the secrets that you're holding, and some of the things that you're not sharing with people about who it is you really are. So a lot of this started, with me kind of cleaning up my own life and really kind of getting clear on, like, what is this that I'm consuming on a, at that point, multiple times a day basis. But also I think it's important to address it from the life's work standpoint, because although I am, an addiction recovery coach, a lot of the work that we do is beyond just pure addiction, and studying human performance, studying self-development, studying human nature, psychology, all these things that are integrated into our work is something I have spent the last 20 years doing. I've been an advocate of personal development and reading and studying and attending courses and having coaches and mentors my entire life. So while yes, we do help men in this one specific area of removing this problem in their life, once we address that and we kind of have a clear direction of what we're doing, the work that we're doing is so much bigger than that. And I really do feel that it's because of the life that I've lived, the experience that I've been very fortunate to go through, the challenges that I've had to overcome, and obviously the decisions and the things that I've, that I've made and had to realize in myself have put me in a unique position where I can talk in this area from a way that nobody else is. And I think that's something that has really been a major driver for some of the success that we're having with our work, because it comes from a very unique standpoint where it's nobody else in this space is having some of the conversations and is attacking it the way that we are at Rebuilt Recovery. But yeah, you said the last conversation was, I think, in May of 2020.
Yeah, I mean, when this releases at the end of January, that's over a year and a half.
Yeah.
Since the last time. So there's been a lot of growth and a lot of development in the work that you're doing, a lot of testimony, a lot of people that have been helped with what you're doing. So we obviously want to dive into that. But before we get there, there's somebody listening right now that's like, yeah, I love porn. I don't see it as a problem. Can we just catch them up? I mean, without saying, hey, you got to go back and listen to the first episode, can you give them like a couple of minutes of, why this is an actual kind of a problem, an issue, regardless if you think you're hurting yourself or anyone else?
Really, the whole last episode for an hour, we were just talking about that. So
right.
That can be, this is part 2.
Right.
We're talking about, another hour, we're going to talk about what happens when you relapse, what happens when you screw up, once you know this is a problem, where do we go from there? So go back and listen to that episode, but real quick, just like in a minute or so, like, why is it a problem? If they don't want to go listen to the whole episode.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure, nothing I'm going to share here today is coming from a place of judgment. I'm not here slamming morality, down the throat of anybody. I'm not even going to address it from a good or bad standpoint, because I think that's one of the biggest pushbacks that I get all the time when I kind of go into a new place or, I'm speaking in front of an audience, or even a lot on the videos. Like, a lot of the comments or pushback that I'll get is like, oh, there's nothing wrong with porn, or porn is not bad. And I'm not here to tell you if it's good or bad. Like, for you, It's not something that I worry about. It's not a conversation I'm even interested in having. What I want to do is I want to come from an education standpoint so people can understand what's happening to the brain, which obviously Mike addressed, we talked about for about an hour on the last podcast. I think to maybe summarize that in a way is probably the easiest way is to look at it through the lens of neuroscience and understanding a little bit of what dopamine is. So neuroscientists or science in general, they look at dopamine, which is a neuromodulator or neurotransmitter. It's basically a chemical, and we have all these different chemicals. We have dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, like they all kind of serve different parts in just our everyday life. They give us good feelings. They give us feelings of joy. They give us feelings of happiness. They give us feelings of motivation. Dopamine is a currency of motivation. So the way that scientists will look at it is the amount of dopamine that is associated with a particular behavior or experience will dictate the level of addiction that experience or chemical is. And pornography in the neuroscience world is what's known as a super normal stimulus.
It lights the whole brain up.
Beyond anything that you're going to get in the natural world.
Yeah.
Beyond anything. Super normal. So what ends up happening at the most simplest terms is first, second exposure to internet streaming pornography. Once again, I want to preface it under that context. I'm not talking about Playboys. I'm not talking about VHS, DVDs. I'm talking about what we have access to, this infinite amount of supply of internet streaming pornography. Hardcore material is recognized as supernormal stimulus. So first, second exposure, you've established a new baseline of dopamine for your brain. So if you have this new baseline that was established through a supernormal stimulus, now once you return back to the normal world, you'll never be able to replicate that naturally. So what are you going to do? You're going to need to go and seek out more pornography. And that is addiction 101. When you need more of something to create the same stimulus response. Mm-hmm. Addiction 101.
Just like a drug, right?
100%.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of people on the other side too that have realized that they don't want this anymore. Like your page is on your website. It says attention men who no longer want to be looking at porn. So like you said, not trying to convince anybody stop or good or bad. It's more at this point in this episode, people that already know I don't like that I'm doing this so much. It's affecting my life in a negative way, and they've decided they're going to stop, and then we're picking up from there and saying, how does that look and work? Because it's not just a clean cut done forever, or what happens when somebody screws up and goes back and looks and then feels bad about themselves or has some of these negative reactions. What do we call that, a relapse, just like a drug addict?
Yeah, it's a word, so what importance do you play to words? Relapse, slip, lapse in judgment. I believe, and this is something that I've really landed on here probably in the last 3 to 4 months as I've, had the opportunity now to work closely and one-on-one with over 100 guys in our one-on-one coaching program. We've had over 50 guys run through various groups. We've had almost 2,000 people go through our books and other courses that we do have. So we have a lot of, small data points that we can look at. If a guy is truly committed and he's ready to end his battle or get pornography out of his life once and for all, the only thing that would lead him to slipping or returning back to it would be one of two things. He's either lacking character traits, just certain ability to do the things that are necessary to live without pornography. And that's not a judgment of somebody's character, because character traits aren't something that you're naturally born with. You may have innate tendencies to lean towards a more disciplined character. You may have more tendency to lean towards certain character traits like willpower, so forth. But a lot of that is stuff that has to be developed over time, which is what we do within our program. So you'll slip or relapse or fall back into your old pattern of behavior due to lack of character traits or the lack of self-belief in and of yourself. And I think this is probably where most men sit, because if you've maybe recognized that porn has been a problem in your life, you've probably said, I'm done with this now, I'm never going to go back. And you've probably made that promise to yourself. The guys listening right now, a dozen, maybe 24 times, maybe 100 times. A guy is out there, he's like, you know what, I've said this before, and then they find themselves 2 days later, sitting in a secret corner in their house, laptop, late night, whatever it is. So what ends up happening with that, though, is because you've said, I'm going to stop, and then you keep returning back, now your confidence in yourself or the self-belief that you can actually achieve this has been completely shattered. And that's the biggest hurdle that I'm facing with the vast majority of the men that we're working, is they just don't believe that they can live
the desire is there, but they don't believe it in the sustainability of their desires.
Yeah, because they're attaching.
They've failed so many times.
Yeah, they're attaching something that is pure neuroscience and is caused by their brain to what they are associating to their sexual needs or their sexual desires. And I think we need to separate them and understand that this pull is coming from behaviors and decisions and programming of ourself that is leading us to need a chemical hit, not something that we need sexually. The act of watching pornography and having real intimacy or real sex with your wife or partner are two different things, and they're two different behaviors. The brain and body respond completely separate. But I think the problem happens is when guys begin to say, oh, I have a high sex drive, so I need to watch a lot of pornography. Or I have these certain desires that were given to me, or I was born with these certain needs and tendencies and things that kind of intrigue me and turn me on. So I need to seek out pornography because my wife won't do these things with me. So we need to understand that in today's conversation, hopefully what we can do is separate them. I'm not here to tell you, like that you shouldn't have internal desires. Like, it's a part of human nature. It's a part of what makes men. Lust is on our heart. It's something that we're all going to battle with for the rest of our lives. But the need for pornography, the need for a hit of dopamine in your brain, almost like you're going to get from cocaine, is not something they're going to be able to justify to me that you really need.
Sounds really similar to the weight loss thing that a lot of people are in. They promise themselves they're going to lose weight, and then they wind up breaking the diet and eating when they're not supposed to, or having that junk food, and then they start up again, but they don't have that self-belief that they're going to be able to stick with it.
Yeah, and this is where I was addressing, I brought up human nature, something I've been studying, for almost 2 decades now. It's weight loss, it's starting a business, it's doing anything, having more meaningful conversations in your life. Here we are, we're recording this, early January 2022. What is everybody, talking about and so excited and committed to doing there right now? Their New Year's resolutions. And what are the statistics? 80% of the people are done with their New Year's resolutions by February.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all don't believe in ourselves to a certain degree.
Right. They like the idea of clean slate. Let's start over. Let's start fresh. New year, new me, all that stuff. Yeah, it sounds great. But what's that look like on day 7, on day 15, on day 30? And then once you've done that so many times, it's almost in the back of your mind, that little voice is just saying, it's just a matter of time before this stops. So, yeah, have fun with it for a little while, but it's just a matter of time. You need to have something, an accountability coach. You need to there's so much that you need, like what Mike and I did last year with weight loss, working with Will Grazione. Like we needed that structure. We needed that person to meet with on a weekly basis. And that's what you're doing for these men.
Yeah, you guys have had a larger impact, in the health and fitness space than Will in terms of sheer numbers. So it's not like you guys didn't know how to get into weight loss or didn't know how to lose weight. Yeah, exactly. You needed somebody to maybe simplify the process for you because you're going to get in your own head. You're going to start thinking about things. Let me overcomplicate these things. But then, let me just have somebody that's going to check in with me. And I know I'm going to have to report to, did I measure my food? Did I track my macros? Did I get my steps in? Did I get my workout in? With my guys, like, done almost 400, 500 videos on YouTube at this point. Literally, if you wanted everything that is in our program and more, it's on the internet for free. But no, the guys come to me, they hire me because they need to have somebody to check in with. And it's also a community. We have an incredible community of men that we're building. So seeing that you're not the only one. And I think that's where a lot of guys, like, we talked about it here at the beginning. It's a taboo conversation. It's a conversation that nobody wants to have. And I was having a conversation with Funk Roberts. You guys know Funk, just yesterday, and he started the episode exactly the same way. We had the conversation that nobody wants to have, and I said, Funk, that's why we need to have it, because if we can admit that we don't want to have it, why? So we're gonna have this behavior in our life, but we're not gonna have a conversation about it. What's wrong with? Clearly something's wrong with that behavior. So let's bring that to the surface. But yeah, the guys, like, what do you need to do? You need to be aware of your thoughts. You need to be attention to what the content is that you're consuming. You need to have some type of gratitude practice. You need to be doing some type of service, because pornography is one of the most selfish behaviors that you're ever going to take part in. You're sitting down by yourself privately, consuming other human beings, other individuals for your own short-term instant gratification pleasure. If you can't tell me that that's not selfish, then I don't know what your definition of selfish really is. So you've molded and created and wired yourself, bringing neuroscience in again, at the neuroscience level, what wires together what fires together wires together. So over the time, you begin to condition yourself that humans are objects of internal pleasure, short-term gratification for me. So how does that manifest in your everyday relationships? Humans become objects of pleasure, and pleasure doesn't have to be masturbation and ejaculation. Pleasure can be like, what is Mike going to do for me today? What is Chris? What am I going to get out of Chris that's going to make my life better? So you begin to kind of see people as objects for your own disposal.
And it's easily justified by people because I'm not hurting anybody. Just me. I'm not hurting anybody. And that's what a lot of people do with these addictions. These issues, these things that they have that they do in the dark that they wouldn't want to be caught doing. But they think, well, it's not. How bad is it? No one's getting hurt on the other end of it.
Yeah, now you're entering into a whole different, parallel of the conversation. I know you guys had Natasha on from Redefining Refuge. You may believe or you may think that what you're consuming is 100% consensual, but the fact of the truth and the reality there is small percentage of that is true consenting. I mean, even in the produced videos, there's girls that are there doing things that they're not happy with. I've had former porn stars on my podcast, and it's like, they begin to look at sex as transactional. The amount of drugs and alcohol and greed and just evil that's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. You guys are a Christian podcast. There's obviously a massive audience that is spiritual here. If you don't think that what you're consuming through the lens of that, because of all that's going on behind the scenes, is infiltrating you and your thoughts and your life and your heart and your spirit, then you don't really understand what the spiritual realm is really about. So we need to look at it for what it really is. I had a former heroin addict on early on in the podcast, and one of the game-changing conversations that he and I was having was a conversation that he had with a doctor, and the doctor brought up, like, you're doing these drugs, but do you realize these drugs have gone down a train of murder, greed, the Mexican cartel, all of this, evil stuff that's taking place. That's what you're putting into your body. Same thing is happening with pornography. These actresses and actors are on drugs. The women are getting beaten, abused. They're there because they're just
underage, illegal stuff going on. Who knows?
Yeah, and then we're not even talking. And then we can talk about the trafficking side of things, where people are recording amateur stuff and then they're selling it. There's been a huge thing with Pornhub in the last year. They pulled down 10 million videos from their site because there's no age verification. So you don't know if you're watching somebody that's 15. You don't know if she's being there, held under her own will. So yeah, to say that you're not hurting anybody, for one, you're hurting yourself, because we just talked about the damage that you're doing to your brain, how you're hijacking your prefrontal cortex, how you're, hijacking your reward system. You're hurting yourself. So if you don't love yourself enough to worry about that, then you don't really understand the other people that you're hurting as well.
Wow. I mean, there was a moment, and I don't know why or what in particular. I don't know. It was a conversation. It was long before you had recovery yourself. And I had a moment, and I think it was the late summer or fall of 2018, that I just swore I'm not doing this stuff anymore. I don't know. Again, I don't know what it was, if I had prayed about it or had a conversation with somebody about it, but it hit me to the point where, I just don't feel right now. I feel like I'm like God's watching me right now, and He's not happy, And I swore I'm not going to do it anymore, and I haven't done it since. But has there been moments where I've thought about doing it? Of course. I'm a man. I'm a guy. I did it for years and years and years. But I just got to that point where I'm like, I don't like that feeling afterwards. And I'm like, what? I don't even know where I was clicking around for half an hour. The heck was I looking at?
It's real conviction. I always give the analogy, everybody knows a former smoker. They know somebody in their life that was a smoker at one point, and now most people, maybe there's a person out there Frank, knows what you're talking about. 98% of people have somebody currently in their life that at one point was a smoker and is now no longer a smoker. You are with that person in a public setting and walk through a cloud of smoke. What is that person's reaction?
Oh my God.
Disgust, right? Yeah. Yes, that person that used to need a cigarette after every meal or need a cigarette first thing upon rising now is disgusted by it. So that same level of conviction is something that we're going to need to really stay committed. I'm going to ask you a question, if that's okay, Chris, because I appreciate you sharing that. So you said like you were convicted, you made this one decision and you haven't looked back, but you have been tempted, you have been triggered and you felt the urge. What has worked for you in those moments?
It's something as simple as just like not getting started, not letting myself go there, finding something else. It's kind of like a late night craving. I had one last night and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh man, I could really go. I know there's chocolate in there from Christmas and I'm like, just give it 5 more minutes. It's almost like the 5-minute rule or 10-minute rule, whatever. Just wait it out a little bit longer. And I actually had late night cup of coffee. I know everyone's going, oh my God. And I could actually fall asleep, no problem after drinking coffee. But I had the coffee because it's an appetite suppressant and I knew it would satisfy some kind of oral fix, right? And so I had that super low calorie, a little half and half, and then sure enough, that did it for me.
Yeah.
And it's the same approach with that stuff is like I found something else. It's like I watch like a comedian or something that's or I'll listen to a podcast. I'll find something else that also like fits some type of interest in me or gets me is an attention getter or grabber. And I can focus on that instead, and then that other stuff just kind of falls off the board for me. But also, I'll say, when you build that momentum over a period of time, it gets easier and easier and easier to say no to it.
Yeah, well, let me unpack that if you don't mind, because I want to be able to support what I said at the beginning, that a guy will only slip and fall back into his old patterns of behavior for one of 2 reasons: lack of character traits or lack of self-belief. So character traits first thing. You felt the urge, but if I sit in this for a minute, discipline, sit in the uncomfortable for a little bit, it's going to go away. So obviously we know Chris, here he's a very disciplined man. He's been training his entire life. He just went through this massive, physical transformation, which required an extreme amount of discipline. The work that you do here requires you to be disciplined and stick to a schedule and hit timelines and hit time frames. So boom, we just showed that right there, that Chris possesses certain character traits that not everybody has. And just because you don't have discipline today doesn't mean that discipline can't be something that is developed over time. So that's the first one.
Oh, mosquitoes. We got them.
Second one is you said that over time it begins to get easier and easier and easier.
Yes.
That's a growing of self-belief and self-confidence that, I can do this and I actually enjoy this side of the things so much better than before.
Yeah, it's like Dr. Ron always says, Dr. Ron Eichels, who's a mentor of ours and a close friend, it's going to bed hungry. And he's like, I take pride in it. I like going to bed hungry. It's like, I might want to eat.
Just go to bed horny?
Go to bed horny. Or take a shower and think about your wife, It's like, do something else. There's always another option, So,
that's why we use fasting. Fasting is a very fundamental part of our entire program, both short-term intermittent fasting on a regular daily basis, long-term fasting 24 hours a week, once a week, or 24 hours a day, once a week. It's a part of our curriculum. And then early on in the program, I want to get you a little bit uncomfortable. So our guys fast for 2 days. And coming into the program, this is part of our week 2 curriculum. Coming into the program, you're required to fast for 2 days and then write out a plan for what you want to do over the next 16 weeks. And a lot of those guys tell me that second week, that fast, that gives them all the confidence they need to sustain themselves for the entire 16-week program, because most people haven't gone 2 days. Everybody's gone 24 hours at some point in their life. Either you've been traveling
accidentally,
or maybe just accidentally. But the 2-day period requires you to kind of lean into a little bit of discomfort because you're going to get hungry, not ravishly hungry. You want to chew your arm off, but there will be a little bit of uncomfortable feeling, and that's going to be okay. Because if you can just sit there for a minute and realize that, hey, I'm going to be good no matter what. Like I can actually go way longer, and I'm going to feel better the longer I can stay. Then you can realize, like, okay, in week 5, week 6, when that trigger arises, just like it did last night to you, that trigger arises. Well, on the food thing, but the trigger arises for pornography for our men. That if this feels very similar to that hunger feeling, because once again, it's all kind of happening at the neuroscience level. Most times when we're hungry, the first, second, third time, it's not because our body needs food. It's because we're programmed and we're wired to eat every couple of hours, And people that are eating a lot of sugar, a lot of junk food, their brain is firing just as much with that sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and all that garbage in the same way it is with pornography. So these guys realize I've gone 2 days without food. Now when that trigger comes, it feels a lot like that first day of hunger. Let me just do what Frank told me to do and just kind of like sit in this a little bit and lean into it, and then it goes away.
It's like a wave.
It goes away.
It is like a wave.
Just wait for the wave to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in doing so, you gain that confidence that
it's a win. It's like a little mini win.
100%. And, I still Ed Milet's line all the time. I don't know if you guys are a fan of Ed Milet.
Sure.
Self-confidence is built and kept by keeping the small promises that you make to yourself. So when you make a commitment that I'm removing pornography out of my life and I'm committed to a porn-free life, that first urge, getting over that hurdle of not giving in, boom, it's a boost to your confidence. Then you go another week, boom, it's another boost to your confidence. And then over time, by the end of this 16-week program, I'm unleashing these men out into the world with like unbreakable, unshakable self-confidence and belief in themselves that they can accomplish anything they want. And that's how we got to the point where we called our podcast The Superhuman Life, because it's like you can really achieve anything you wanted to.
So the guys in the program, they don't ever mess up. It's just 16 weeks straight and then kind of healed or cured or done with it or changed. I mean, is there a relapse situation? It's the way you're talking about it sounds like it doesn't happen or it's not common. Is it something that happens sometimes or not too often?
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, I'm working with human beings.
Okay.
So humans are going to slip.
So what do you say to those guys? The way you guys are talking about it sounds really easy, not a big deal. Just have some discipline and follow this plan, and it's not going to be that hard.
Yeah, so we teach a 5-step process, I guess, to process your relapse. And what I want these guys to do is realize that the relapse just didn't happen like in an instant moment. There was a series of events that led you up into that point when you made a decision. So I think the first thing that these guys have to get to the point of taking the responsibility that them viewing porn is a decision that they've made. It's decisions that they made before they joined the program. And if they relapse, the relapse was a choice and decision that they made to look at pornography. So it's an acceptance of personal responsibility on your choices and decisions that you're making.
Like it didn't just happen to you.
Nobody tied you down to the table or tied you down to the chair and put you in front of a computer and said, watch this. And if that is the case, you have a bigger problem in your life than pornography. Right. And I would tell you to address that problem.
Address the kidnapper.
First. Yeah. Yeah. But if you weren't kidnapped and you made the choice to look at pornography, we're going to take you back and we're going to run you through 5 steps. So you need to identify the initial trigger. What was it? And the guys will get to the root of their triggers.
Eventually.
It's a part of our week 1. Yeah. I mean, before we even begin the fast and anything else, we need to understand your weak spots, vulnerabilities, triggers, urges, so we can understand and begin to put guardrails up in your life. But once you've done that initial homework and you understand all of that, okay, now we need to get back to the point of you figuring out, okay, in this decision that you made, which became a relapse, where did that trigger first come? So we're all going down this path. Like all of the men are walking one path. And then at some point in their journey, there's a fork in the road, and the fork in the road splits, and you have a choice there to either stay on the path of staying clean and not looking at pornography, or you return back to making the choice and decision to look at pornography again. So what I want the men to do is return back to that point when the fork in the road split. Sometimes it's an hour before the relapse. Sometimes it's a day before the relapse. Sometimes it's 2 to 3 days. And it could be because they're not doing their homework. They're not doing the morning assignments. They're not doing the daily gratitude. It could be they saw a certain woman at the gym and maybe approached her and got rejected. And then they internalized that for the next 6 hours. And then when they got home and they were sitting on it, it began to kind of bottle up and manifest. So we need to get you to that point, though, of in your road where it split. And instead of staying porn free, you chose the path of going back and returning to pornography. So that's the first step. Identify where that is. Then figure out what is the wrong choice that you made and get really clear on it. Like, this is what I did that I shouldn't have done. Then figure out what the alternative choice should have been. So what would have been the better decision? When I felt triggered, when I felt urged, should I have gotten myself out of the environment that I was in? Should I have gone outside and gone around the block for a walk? Should I have jumped in the cold shower? Should I have done some push-ups? All these other tools and variables, you need to be clear on what you should have done. And then what are you going to do next time to keep the promise and commitment to yourself? So it's a very rationalistic approach, but I think it's understanding we need to return you back to the point where you made a choice and decision that can only come from a place of personal responsibility.
Right. Wow. Heavy. And it's not easy. I mean, and that wasn't my, when I mentioned it before, that's just me. I don't know why it happened. I'm actually surprised sometimes when I think about it that I have not had a moment.
I'm surprised every day myself, Chris.
And I take I know.
Not in you, but in me.
No, I know, because it's one of those things, right? From back to when I can even think, looking at magazines or somebody's VHS tape that was getting passed around in school, there was always a moment where like porn or looking at other people having sex was like part of life, right? As a male, and it only got built up and got worse as it became.
It took some effort back in the day. You had to like go into the woods and take a hike and find something under the leaves. You had to like go to the store and purchase something. And, I mean, it was a lot different today with touching the internet and social media. We talked about it in the last episode. It's like Instagram was just a huge issue because it just kind of started as an innocent thing, and then it just started getting worse and worse and worse, and before you know it, you're in like a really lustful thing. So you had some little tactics and tricks of how to say not interested in different pictures that pop up, and maybe if you have to, just get rid of Instagram or TikTok for a while.
Yeah. Or certainly unfollow some people.
Yeah, and
that seems to be the thing that starts a lot of it, because it's not, the problem isn't going to the gas station and buying a Playboy. That's not the problem. The problem's the internet and this constant overabundance of information, 3 seconds and on you all the time with your phone and your computers, and the being anonymous and all of this too. Nobody knows what you're doing, and you can hide it and nobody has to know. And it's not just like some guys out there, and a lot of girls and people at church and women, they think like, oh, it's just these creepy guys that do that. No, it's like most guys. To find guys like us that even care, that are even trying not to, is like kind of a rare thing.
Yeah. So the Instagram one and all social media in general is I think it's an important conversation to have right now and address and explain it, why that ends up happening. So we talked about dopamine here at the beginning. Dopamine works in a cycle. It's a pain pleasure cycle. So you're constantly releasing dopamine. As we're sitting we're always releasing dopamine. It's kind of at a base level. But we talked about these spikes, with supernormal stimulus, with pornography. It gives you this massive spike. Well, Instagram and social media is not going to get you to the level of pornography, but it's going to elevate your dopamine because it's excitement, it's new, it's constant new stimulus. So as you're kind of just scanning, Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is that you're doing, you're getting these little spikes in dopamine. Now, with anything that works in a pendulum or works in a cycle, you can't have a spike without getting a dip. So understanding that if you're going to spike your dopamine with Instagram, this is what's known as the edge effect. So you're not getting all the way to the levels that you would with pornography. You're kind of brushing the edge. You're kind of brushing the edge. You're kind of brushing the edge. So you constantly are spiking it throughout the day, or you're spending an hour on Instagram. You've peaked it. Then a couple hours later, you're going to feel this massive dip in your dopamine, which can come through lack of motivation, kind of maybe feeling trigger urge to go need another hit of pornography. Well, your brain is going to tell you that you don't want to go back to return to where you went us last time. We want to go above and beyond that. So what a lot of guys end up happening is they'll spend an hour on Instagram, then they'll go 2 hours without it, and they feel horrible about themselves, so they return back to pornography. So it works in this cycle of like edge effect, small little peak, spike, and then you get this massive dip. And then out of that dip, you're not going to return to baseline. You're going to need to go all the way back up to where pornography is going to take you.
So would you say when we're saying determining your weaknesses or vulnerabilities or where your urges come from, these social media platforms are major issues for a lot of guys dealing with this?
100%. And, obviously it's dependent upon the guy and where he's at in his life and what he's doing. But a lot of our guys, we're like, hey, maybe for the next 90 days, let's shut it down completely. That would put you more into the realm of like a true dopamine detox, which is, something that most people can benefit from, just purely, cutting out your dopamine. But yeah, we take you through that process.
What are other dopamines? Video games, social media?
Everything. But video games are a major one, especially now with like these kind of all-encompassing games where you're putting the headset on.
VR.
And, the VR is a whole different animal as well. Movies, video games, gambling, shopping, like the excitement of potentially getting something new online, like will spike your dopamine. Like I had a former girlfriend, like addicted to Amazon shopping, and I can look back now and understand it, like from.
So all these different spikes are leading to this up and down dip that then kind of triggers you back into the ultimate dip of pornography. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So it's like a dopamine detox of everything in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that make people feel when they stop all the dopamine completely?
Oh, I mean, well, how do you feel when you go on a family vacation and you go a week without your phone? Have you ever done that? You probably haven't, but you might have.
I wouldn't say a straight week,
a couple days.
Certainly like days where I barely look at it at all.
Even a day or two without barely looking at it, I'm sure you probably feel a whole lot better about yourself.
Oh, so, it feels good to be disconnected. It can be hard at first, but then once you're without it, it's empowering. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of being out in the woods and nature and stuff, and you don't really think about it or care to see what the heck's going on.
100%.
But what in the day-to-day life and the structure of life, I mean, that thing's getting it's darn near impossible.
Unless you're, like you said, going on the vacation in the mountains, you can take a break from all your technology. That's fine. But people use their phones for everything: navigation to get to where they're going to lunch, hooking up with friends, appointments, calendars, alarm clocks. It's like
but is there not a way to get a navigation without a phone? Is there not a way to have a calendar without a phone?
Yeah, the question was, can you live without your phone? The question was, if we stop all this dopamine hits from everywhere it comes, which seems like it all channels through the phone. So if we take a break from the phone, then you have a crash, right? So you're going to feel bad at first, and then you're going to feel better a few days of having a break from it. That's just a question. I haven't completely stopped everything that makes me happy or dopamine hits.
Yeah, so I think maybe maybe a great piece of advice here would be to interject some type of intermittent fasting schedule into your devices and into your phone. I probably from about 8-9 p.m. in the evening till about 7-8 a.m. So that's 12 hours every single day. I don't touch or look at my phone. So you can utilize intermittent fasting with phones and devices and even social media platforms. There's a lot of great apps out there that'll shut apps off at certain times. You can get a lockbox for your phone. I know a lot of guys in our
so it's really connected to a phone addiction too. Some of this.
Yeah. I mean, I think because that's how we consume information these days for the vast majority of us.
If you can get off your own computer and shut the phone down sometimes. I mean, it's really annoying when you're with somebody and they're just staring at the phone all the time, half listening to you, not really paying attention, or you're on a date with your wife, which my wife doesn't do this, and I'm so happy, but just constantly being on the phone. You're at dinner, they're looking at the phone. You're driving together, they're on the phone.
I don't put up with that. I call people out on it.
You do, but someone who's addicted to it's addicted to it, and if they don't care, and they keep doing it, and then you just think they're annoying, and maybe you spend less time with them.
Yeah, I'm probably not spending time with that person. But no, I just
shot. It's so many people. This isn't just like one or two people.
The world is addicted to their phones and to their devices. Yeah, I just shot a podcast. We released it first one of the episode. 5 life hacks to make 2022 the best year ever. One of the hacks is get unplugged for 60 minutes. Every single day. Start there. If you can't go 12 hours, start with 60 minutes. Most people don't go more than 10 minutes without being an arm's reach away from their phone. If you could start at 60 minutes, then build up from there into maybe a more of an intermittent fasting type of schedule with your phone.
It'll help you with sleeping too. Start. Shut that thing down at night. Get that blue light out of there.
Yeah, well, I haven't taken my phone into my bedroom in 4 years. That's something I stopped doing before I even got into this. But that's another trigger for men because you're laying in there, you're having massive, insomnia, you can't sleep, your mind is racing all the way. Whether or not you're consciously thinking about it, your subconscious knows that phone and the world that you're connected to is within arm's reach. So before you know it, you're laying there, eyes closed, and you reach over and now you're swiping. So I encourage all of our guys. Once again, I don't tell anybody that they need to do anything. You joined a program, you follow the steps. But my advice for our men is your phone doesn't go in your bedroom. If that's your alarm clock, either put it in a place outside of the room where you're still going to be able to hear it because that's going to help you from not hitting snooze, or you need to get an old school, digital alarm clock that's going to get you up in the morning. Yeah. But none of our guys take their phones.
Just having some discipline with the phone, that would just improve lives so much. Relationships, traits, right? Everything,
Oh, without question. And I think maybe in a way, without me even realizing it, that was something that I did a long time ago. I mean, there was a period where I still used the phone as like an alarm clock on airplane mode. But then once I got a smartwatch, then I just use the alarm on that. And the phone doesn't go, like you said, doesn't go in the room with me now for a few years. And it's nice because it's just not. It's not. We don't even have a television in our room because
the bed is
all we want to do is right. So it's just dark. It's always dark in there, which is great. And I get dressed in there and sleep in there. That's about it. You know what I'm saying? More of the sex stuff would be great, but marry 2 kids. Kids end up in the bed. It's a crap show. Hey guys, this week's episode is brought to you by our good friend, today's guest, Frank Rich, and the Superhuman Life podcast. You know, we love Frank here on the Strong by Design podcast show, which is why today is his 3rd time on the show. And we want to make sure you go and check out his top-rated podcast on Apple, the Superhuman Life, or whatever other platform you listen to podcasts. Frank's mission with the show is to help you find breakthroughs in your faith, fitness, finance, family, and freedom, so that you can become the man you were created to be. And just like us here at Strong by Design, Frank brings on a wide range of guests and experts, from NFL Super Bowl champions to award-winning and best-selling authors, and some of the most brilliant minds in the areas of neuroscience, biohacking, and personal development. And in fact, Mike and I have both been featured guests on his podcast show. So head over to the Superhuman Life on Apple or whatever platform you listen, and make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and written review. Grab a screenshot of the review before submission and email it to frank@rebuiltrecovery.com for a free t-shirt from Frank's company, Rebuilt Recovery, and a barbell muscle building workout DVD. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the show. Transformations. I know you have so many of them, and there's a few that you really wanted to highlight. Can please share with our listeners some of the lives that have been massively changed here in recent months and years?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. You know, we have an entire series, a playlist now on YouTube. It's the I Am Rebuilt series, which is, you know, our best stories, you know, our greatest students, the guys that stayed clean, the guys that, you know, turned their lives around, started businesses, reconnected with their wives, you know, reestablished relationships. But one in particular that's standing out because it's fresh. So we launched group coaching, the Quit Porn and Get Ripped Challenge, coming off of my birthday, which was at the end of August. So this group kicked off September of last year, September of 2020. It was a 16-week.
2021?
2021, yeah, I'm sorry. So September of 2021. I forget that we're in 2022 already.
I know.
It's so crazy. So it was a 16-week transformation challenge. You know, obviously the audience here, you know, I'm assuming knows there's an element of fitness in my background as well. You mentioned the one episode 109 was truth about porn, but I came on episode 10 and talked about progressive overload. Yeah. You know, is it the best way to build muscle? So a lot of my work before this has been centered around helping guys change their lives from the physical standpoint. So I wanted to have something unique that I could do with a group, and I wanted to incentivize the men to really buy in, and I wanted to reward somebody at the end of it with a grand prize. So I put an offer out there. It was going to be a $2,500 cash prize to the person that had the greatest transformation. We called it the Quit Porn and Get Ripped Transformation Challenge. It was 16 weeks long. So they went through our curriculum, which is the Reboot Your Life 16-week curriculum. Then we put them into the 16-week body rebuilding course, which is a 30-day carnivore reset followed by 12 weeks of muscle-centric testosterone training. So we had 11 guys. 10 or 11 guys joined that program. One fell off right after the first month. So we had a great group of guys, incredible group. But one gentleman in particular, like, he just bought in from the beginning, you know, true bought in, like 100%, didn't miss a single thing. And I think his story is special and unique, especially for your audience here, you know, a faith-based audience. This young man was a pastor. Like he's something he shared with me at the beginning. He's like, something I've struggled with internally for these last few years as he's leading a small ministry, as he's leading his congregation. Like, he's struggling with this self-identity about himself. So it's very sensitive at the beginning. And I've been pretty open, you know, myself about my opinions in how the church, you know, like the big church in general, is addressing this. I wrote an email this morning. So 50% of pastors, this is a 2020 study, Barna Research, 56% of pastors and I think 64% of youth pastors admit to having their own problem with pornography. But only 7% of churches have a program to help men.
Wow.
It's a problem. It's a major problem. So I saw an opportunity with Justin. I'm not going to share his last name because he's asked to keep that private. I saw an opportunity with Justin to not only change his life, but to really have a bigger impact and really ultimately really make a dent in, in the world and in the church again. So he came on board. I mean, by the fourth week, like, I kind of had the inclination, like, this guy's going to win. Like, it was, so the challenge, the way that you had to win it wasn't just the greatest physical transformation. If you join a fitness challenge, like, it's a person that does the best before and after. But that was only a small segment of it. They also needed to, at the end of it, kind of record a video testimonial kind of essay about their experience, about what they went through, about what they had to overcome, and about what they're looking forward to after this. But I knew about, like, week 5 or week 6. I'm like, this guy's going to win. Like, I really felt it. And I wasn't the one that was deciding. Like, I had an outside panel that didn't know these guys. Because if I was the one that was going to make it, I'm emotionally invested into these guys' lives by this point. I'm talking to them weekly. I'm having one-on-one calls with them. They're reaching out to me behind the scenes. So I had a group of people outside of the organization that was going to review the videos and was going to look at the testimonials. And they were going to rank each person in terms of dictating the winner. But like I said, I knew from the beginning coming in, like, he is going, because he told me on our first call, he's like, Frank, I'm here to quit porn, but if you want to be honest, I'm here to win this challenge. So he had this kind of competitive drive and spirit, which you guys know me, like, I'm a competitive dude. Like, that lit me up from the inside. By the end of this program, like, this guy is kind of working as an assistant coach. Like, he's praying with the guys, he's taking calls, like, on his own, like, he's showing up on the other calls, talking about how the success he's having and how it's rolling out into his life. So at the end of the day, man, I had this young pastor, mid-30s, family man that was in the Midwest, that was struggling with his identity as far as leading his congregation, dropped 21 plus pounds, built all the confidence, all the belief in himself. That was the one thing that he really highlighted in his testimonial video, that belief. Like, he began to believe that he didn't need this. He began to believe that he could live a life without pornography, because once again, 35, probably been caught up in it for 15 plus years, have tried and failed multiple times, has worked different faith-based programs, has worked with other therapists, so forth and so forth. So he came in like, I'm not really sure if this is going to work. But by the second, third week, this man had so much belief because every day he took action on what we asked him to do. Yeah, our program isn't easy, and it shouldn't be. And it's not for everybody. And there is some work that needs to be done. But if you ultimately are going to change your life, shouldn't that require a little bit of work? So I don't ask too much of these guys. But yeah, here we now have a man, in the greatest shape of his life, stronger, healthier, better sex with his wife, better leader in his church, better father to his kids. We changed his life. And now he feels empowered to go out there and serve his community and serve the church.
Wow.
That's awesome. I think I saw that on your page the other day when you're highlighting him.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tell us about the logo on the shirt. You gave us each one of these shirts too.
Yeah.
I think the camera can see it. It's like a hybrid logo.
Yeah. So, the logo, I mean, the Rebuilt Recovery logo, you can actually see it here on the sleeve as well. It is it's a lion's face inside of a phoenix wing. The company is Rebuilt Recovery. The phoenix is a symbol of death and resurrection. And then a lion is, we're part of Roar. Roar, you go out, you kind of, lion is, when they roar, they kind of claim their territory. So the way that I got to this was, these men come in, somewhat broken, and I believe a lot of the work that we do is in that identity change. We take you from a guy that is addicted and identifying as an addict to pornography, and I need to unleash you back out into the world with the self-confidence and belief that you don't need it in your life. So you go through this breaking you down and then building you back up. So the phoenix is the symbol of we're gonna tear you down, and that's gonna be okay, because when I release you back out into the world, we're sending you back out as a lion with all the confidence, with a purpose for who you are, with a purpose for what you're doing in this world, in service of others. And brother, you're gonna here to claim your territory. So yeah, that's how we got to that. It's very meaningful to me, and it'll probably be tattooed somewhere.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a tattoo in the making right there.
It's coming. I actually have a meeting. I finally found, I believe, the artist here locally that I'm going to work with, and we're set to meet, I think, at the end of February for our first kind of initial conversation. So
nice.
Yeah, I have a lot of cool things kind of.
So if the guys are ready to rebuild and claim their dominion, where do they go for that? What does it usually look like?
The recovery?
No, you have a page where people can go, right? Like, how do people get involved? How do they find out more? How do they find out about the program?
Yeah, so we have a 16-week. I talked about the group coaching. We launch a group a month. It's kind of done in a cohort style. That's done through application process only. There's not really a marketing page for that. If people are ready and they're fed up and ready to take the plunge, we do have that 16-week curriculum that anybody could run through. It's delivered in a video format. There's tons of education. There's probably 30, 40 hours of video content on there of me teaching, of me sharing the exercises. There's a recommended book list. There's a prayer scripture component because we are a faith. We're a Christian organization. So all that's included. We get a lot of guys that, come from different faiths and don't come from different worldviews, and it works for them as well. But the Reboot Your Life course is our 16-week curriculum, which we've had, hundreds of guys go through at this point. You can find more information about that at rebootrecovery.com/SBD podcast. And anybody here, any of the listeners, followers, subscribers here, what we're going to do, because one thing we talked about in the first episode is how special this place is to my story and ultimately this work, because it all started in the parking lot on February 14th, 2019. So I want to honor, obviously want to honor you guys, and I want to make it, as affordable as possible for everybody out there. So the course is normally $297, but we're going to do a discount code. What should we make the code? Critical Bench?
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll make a coupon code of Critical Bench.
Or how about Strong by Design?
Strong by Design. So we'll do a coupon code Strong by Design at rebuiltrecovery.com/SBD podcast. We'll give you $100 off of the course, which is $297, and include in that anybody that purchases it, I'm going to do a free coaching call.
And we'll have that in the show notes, in the description. So whatever platform you're listening to, that information will be there as well for you listeners out there. And I would encourage any ladies that have been listening to this conversation who are like, what can you say, just like a quick minute to somebody, like a woman who feels like this is something that like I would want to open up to with my husband. Like what?
Yeah, I've had some women reach out to me and say they listened to the first episode and like wanted their husband to listen to it, but it's a tricky conversation. Do you have any tips for the girls? There's women listening to this right now that are like, yeah, my husband needs this. How do they approach him or tell him about just go listen to this episode?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because it definitely can't come across as I'm judging you because you had this problem. You need to go fix yourself, because the minute you say that to a guy, like the three of us sitting here, what are we all going to do? Like,
no, you're going to lose him.
Like,
it's going to be a big blow up fight.
So yeah, if you can get their hands into either this one, or probably I would recommend those guys starting with the first one, if the woman is trying to, because that's more of the education side that we talked about.
To see it for what it is.
The first one.
Yeah. Episode 109, please.
Please start them on 108, and then they'll just go to 109 because it's next.
Right, this is a podcast. You should check it out. 108's a great starting point. And then, I know that conversation has done so much for people because it has blown up. And so, I would encourage any ladies listening.
It's like no one's talking about this, but it's our number one most downloaded episode.
I know.
It's like people are thinking about it.
People are thinking about
have
it.
Those conversations.
I got caught off guard just last week, I think it was, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. On a consultation call with a guy, I forget his name, and then he hops up on Zoom, and we're doing our first introduction, like, hey, so and so, where you dialing in from? What brought you here? He goes, yeah, it's me and my wife, and he turns the phone, and his wife is sitting there with him. I'm like, oh no, I've never actually dealt with this where I'm talking to the wife. He's like, my wife found you on YouTube and told me I need to call you, and I was like, oh, wow. Because at the end of the day, like, by the time they get to me, like, they're ready for the most part. These guys are ready. Like you said, it's like you're fed up and tired and you're ready and committed to change. So, yeah, for the women out there, hey, hun, I found this interesting conversation that these guys were having. I'm not judging you about anything, but maybe I think it's something that you should take a listen to. and just kind of toss it up to them. They're like that, because if you try to force them to do anything, like you're going to lose them right away.
Just matter of fact, very nicely, kindly, just try to say, hey, maybe this is worth your time to listen to this, and leave it at that.
Yeah, because everybody is hearing a lot of this for the first time. Yep. And hey, I heard these guys having this conversation that I think we need to listen to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And start there.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and you're just continuing to grow, and it's encouraging that you're helping so many people, these transformations, and you help one guy, and that one guy becomes 10, and that 10 becomes 100.
That's really happened in the last year. It was kind of at the idea phase when we first started, and now look how far it's come.
Yeah, I was still inside of a marketing agency building a sales part. I was a VP of sales, at that time for an up and coming marketing agency. And I had a couple clients on the side. I think by May, so February, March, April, I probably was still in the process of developing the curriculum, which now has gone through 3-4 different iterations. So yeah, it's happened in a very short time. To really think about, just two plus years ago, like I was overcoming this myself, and then the podcast started, and that led to all these messages that I'm getting. And, it's incredible, because another part of what these guys do within the program is like, they kind of now become like a billboard for the company, and a billboard for, not even if people, come to me to get help. Like, I just want to see more men get healthy. I just want to see more men live a life of joy and freedom. And I think that's what comes on the other side of this thing, is when you remove that darkness, it's like, wow, all of this, like I've been missing out on this. Yep. It's like that haze of how you see the world.
Look what I can focus on now.
Yeah, it's incredible. So yeah, we have huge goals and aspirations, and it's definitely not going to be done only with me, but we're getting guys out. I had one guy, Dave, by the end of his 16 weeks, he was leading Celebrate Recovery groups in his church. So he was now becoming a leader of other people in addictions. Justin now is going to take our work into his church and into his ministry and into his congregation and have massive impact over there. So yeah, we're just getting started, man. We have, like I said, goals of, 1 million lives changed here by 2025. And, I think we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's starting a conversation for a lot of people.
That's where it starts.
They're so afraid to engage in anything around this topic at all, and it just starts with
because of shame, right?
Right,
and then shame is removed the minute you admit it. The minute you say, yes, I have this problem, shame has been removed from you, and you now move up to the higher level of consciousness. Something that was shared on a podcast. I think it was Xander. Like shame, and Dr. David Hawkins talks about this in his book Power versus Force. Like shame is like the lowest level of consciousness. So like when you're living in shame, you're like one step above death. Like you're not happy about anything. You can't find joy. You can't find pleasure. You can't find anything. So just having a conversation. And that's a lot of times, like on our consultation calls, I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about coaching. We're going to talk about programs if that's something that you're interested in. But my goal here with you today is nothing more than to provide a safe place for you to have an honest conversation. Because I know how my life changed in this parking lot when I had an honest conversation with somebody. Yeah. And the rest has been history now.
Right. It changed everything.
Yeah. And it's really not that easy for guys to go to their wife with this problem, or sometimes to go to their church. We've known guys that have been open about it and have not gotten the kind of reaction that you would hope to get from people. So that's what's really cool, I think, about working with you or being part of this community and group. This is guys supporting each other, giving each other grace, empowering each other, and kind of stepping through to the other side. Where I don't know if you're going to get that same response going immediately to your spouse with this problem, or going to a group of guys from somewhere else.
Because the spouse is, unless she's done her own homework and has, listened to some of these conversations and podcasts, she's coming from an emotional standpoint. You don't love me. You don't find me attractive. You don't find me sexy. All of these other feelings. So her initial reaction is like, you're a cheater. You're a liar. I don't want to be with you. So no, that is like actually not the first person you should go talk to, and we'll help prepare you to have that conversation when the time comes. But I don't want our guys like having their wives be their accountability partners. I don't want the wives being the one that have access to their covenant eyes. And then with the church thing, man, like, yeah, the fact that more than half of the pastors that are working in churches right now are struggling with the issue, you go to them, like they don't feel capable to have that conversation with you. So they're going to push you away. They're going to make you feel uncomfortable. They're going to guilt. They're going to shame you into it. So not until we can really infiltrate the church and get them handling it in the proper way do I feel that they're going to be a safe place for people to go to.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, and I don't want it to feel like I'm bashing the church, because I love church. Like, I love the community.
It's always a hard thing for the church and for anybody, really, is accountability amongst each other. People don't like to have to like hold somebody accountable. Someone comes to you and tells you have a problem, and they're telling you, there's got to be a certain relationship there for you to even be able to hear that.
Yeah, and I also think that an element of this has to be looked at through the lens of science. You have to understand from a neuroscience level what is happening at the brain, because when you understand that, you then can equip yourself with tools to then work through it. And the church is not going to say like, yeah, we're going to look at this neuroscience and we're going to have you do all these things. Like, yeah, they're going to have prayer, they're going to have scripture, they're going to have support groups. All of that is needed, but it's like half of the equation.
Yeah.
That's like defense. So it's so really rebooting or recovering is an offensive defensive game. You have to understand your triggers, and you have to have support and community so you can build barriers in your life. But then if that's all you did, now you're just a porn addict that is sitting in a box not doing anything. You need to change who you are. There needs to go through that identity change. You need to reboot and rewire your brain. And that requires offense. That requires living in a state of gratitude. That requires doing service work. It requires having a plan and direction for where you're going to go with your life and for your day. So yeah, that's what you're going to get when you come into, rebuilt recovery, when you come into reboot your life. You're going to get a defensive game plan, and then we're going to give you an offensive playbook.
Wow, it's awesome. I love it. Rebuilt Recovery, Frank Rich, the Superhuman Life podcast. Definitely go check that out. Make it one of your regular go-to podcasts. I've enjoyed several episodes myself over the years. And,
you guys have both been on?
We've both been on. Gosh, yeah.
We need to get you back on.
It's been a while. I'll have to do another one. We have you like every 100 episodes. Like, hey, I think you're right. I think it was like episode 10 or whatever, and then it was like 109, and now we're like 2.
Are you in the 2s now?
We're up into the 2s, so it's like every 100 we have you on.
You were episode 3. You were early on, because when you start these podcasts, you don't know a lot of people. You just need to get your friends.
Right, your friends do it, right?
And then Mike was a little bit later on, but we'll do some stuff with both of you guys.
Yeah, that was excellent. Well, we appreciate the time, Frank. It was excellent. I think we've definitely opened the door for some people, for some listeners, and hopefully help them make some better decisions going forward in life. Thanks, Mike, for being here, encouraging the conversation. And
hey, I was just devil's advocate the whole time. I'm just like, prove it. Why? Isn't it just this? Explain yourself.
No, it's good. It's very good, because there's the listener on the other side has these questions, and then Mike's usually good at kind of saying like, I know there's somebody thinking this, so let me ask this.
Bring them.
That's what I'm saying. So, listeners, thank you so much. Another great conversation here on the Strong by Design podcast. You are created strong by design. You're made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. We believe that 100%. That's why we're not afraid to go into these areas of life that a lot of people aren't willing to talk about. So thank you so much for choosing us. Hit that 5-star rating. Please leave us a review, whatever platform you listen to the show. We'd greatly appreciate it. Yeah, you can. That's a good spot too. Hey, we'll be back next week as always here on Strong by Design. And share this episode. Please share this with someone who needs to hear it, and share episode 109 with them as well. And we'll see you next week, or talk with you next week here on Strong by Design. God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.